They say, if you say it 5 times in a row, he'll appear. MovieMan. 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 MovieMan.
Hey guys, this is MovieMan, and I have an error to me, and this is Skyrim. Just kidding, I'm not gonna go do any of that.
Candyman isn't real.
He chose you. He has purpose for you.
Tell everyone.
New to the neighborhood.
You should say it.
Candyman.
Say his name.
Candyman!
And we have Candyman. God's not dead. So it turns out I was wrong a couple reviews back. I thought we were through all the films that have been pushed back due to COVID. No, we have this one, but also obviously No Time to Die in October. So excited. But here we are with Candyman, released in technically 2021. So going into it, and as the thumbnail suggests, I really enjoyed this. Funny thing is, before we get into this one, and before I get into the more in-depth parts of it, I'll just say, I was never a huge fan of the original Candyman movies. Like, you know, I respected them for the significance they had and still have, and, you know, Tony Todd, gotta love him, but it was never one of those horror films where I was like, oh my god, you gotta see Candyman. Not like something like, you know, Evil Dead, or The Thing, or It, or something like that. But it existed, and I knew about it. And so, seeing this, I saw it, and the first trailer comes out, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're making a remake. Like, because they've been remaking a lot of horror movies lately. So I was like, okay, well, you know, you see the name Jordan Peele on it, but here's the thing. He's not directing it, guys. It's that producer credit. Yes, he helps basically probably to give advice, financial backing, probably maybe whispered one or two things into the director's ear. But just keep in mind before you get into it, he didn't direct it. It's just he helped work on it heavily. So, you know, all that being said, I thought it was great. I'm not gonna lie. Top down as always. Yeah? No? Anybody disagree? Okay, cool. So, directed by Nia DaCosta. You love to see it. You love to see not only a female director, but you love to see a female gal of color director. And I mean, yeah, great job. Props. I never knew the name, but now she's getting like more national and I think even international recognition, which I'm very glad she is. When I looked her up, the only things I could really find like that were IMDb of note, which more or less, I mean, she has like writer, producer, and some directing credits, but the more well-known stuff would be her experience writing for Little Woods and for something else called Ghost Tape. I've never heard of either of those. Apparently, she's directing The Marvels coming out, so she's being picked up by like the big boys now, so that's great. But yeah, I know this isn't her directorial debut, but this is the first like mainstream film that she's going to be getting credit for, and she knocked it out of the park. I'll get more into why she did and how she did it, but this was a very well done film. The main stars, I got to give a shout out to the cast here. The cast killed it. Great performances by the cast. I'm so sorry. Yahya Abdul, I'm reading it just so I make sure I get it right. Yahya Abdul Mateen II, I believe. Yeah, I think it's Yahya Abdul Mateen II. Bravo. Holy shit. I got like Get Out vibes, especially in a couple scenes in this movie. So I mean, huge props there. As well as his co-star, Teyana Paris. I mean, granted, the whole cast did a great job, but there are two main lead roles, and I told you to look out for him back when I saw him in Zola, and sure enough, who else? Fucking Coleman Domingo, man. I swear to God. I'm glad I called it. You're going to be seeing him pop up in more. And what do you know? Here he is. And he's going to keep popping up in more because he kills it too, man. He's great. Acting in this movie was superb. Yeah, that's the main, like, overarching, like, before we get into it. There's other cast, of course, like I always say. But if we got into every little bit of detail about who all stars in it, we'll be here for a while. But, yeah, Candyman was a excellent film. As the thumbnail suggests, the big thing that I love about what it did is that, and this isn't a spoiler so much because, I don't think it'll ruin the experience going into the film, but Candyman is not necessarily a remake, but it's like a rebooted continuation of the franchise because it acknowledges the events of the first movies and even has characters from the first movie. It does what a sequel and especially a remade adaptation sequel needs to do successfully, which is keep the core concept of your film in there. Candyman, done. You acknowledge the lore, you acknowledge what's come before, but then you adapt it for a modern audience and for a modern time, and then expand that story and that universe forward. And it does just that. It does a fantastic job of basically communicating the same important themes that the original film did, which is the big ones, police brutality, racial inequality, and it's able to bring those up to light, which, they're already in a light, but they're very often overlooked, and I'm glad that films keep putting social injustice matters into the spotlight. We're not converting any racists out there, but it's still important, because Candyman isn't just a, Spectre. Candyman is a thing. It's basically like a metaphor, an analogy for the people that suffer at the hands of these blights. And yeah, that's put brilliantly on screen through excellent directing, excellent cinematography, the lighting and the color correction in this film, the acting is superb. I felt in it. I felt emotionally attached to characters. I really cared about what was going to happen to these people. I was really curious about the Candyman mythos. I wanted to learn more. It's an intriguing premise. Every character has an intriguing story. It was all done fantastically well. And I always praise any movie that is able to incorporate this. Great practical effects. Not only do I love me some practical effects in general, but in horror films especially, I get it. Gore, blood, it's not for everybody. Spooks, specters, ghosts, things that go bump in the night, a little bit of the old ultra violence. It's never quite for everybody, but let me tell you, when the filmmakers and the crew go to the effort of putting in practical effects and not having to take the easy way out with, CGI animatics, but actually try to make it look real. And oh my god, the makeup in this film, the practical effects, yes, please. More filmmakers are doing this, especially, I love just the love that goes into horror. This was through and through, you might call it a supernatural horror film if you want, but this just felt like good horror. The story is dark and doesn't necessarily have the best of endings. The violence is there. The film is not violence for the sake of violence, but when there is violence, it's not just a little people are slit, slap, stab, paddywhack, give a guy a knife on the back, it's great. And see that also in practical effects, you get a whole star, a whole number rating for me, effort. That's what we look for, effort. Like I said, all the cast did a great job. I can't give them enough praise. All fantastic actors, all great performances, yeah, no complaints. If I had to get into any negatives, because there are technically some negatives, I felt like the ending was a tiny bit rushed. Things kind of come together and come to a climactic end kind of quickly. I don't feel like it was too sudden, and it does not ruin the film for me, really at all. I think though, if they had just if they had played with the ending, or maybe put a little bit more length and effort, a tiny bit more lead up into it, maybe it would have settled better for me. But it felt a little bit rushed. Just a tiny bit rushed. I always praise, this is a bit off topic, I always praise Stephen King for his portrayal of insanity in the novel Pet Sematary. The books, not so much, but in the book Pet Sematary, you have your main character, Lewis, and you're following him throughout that book as he goes from perfectly sane to out of his fucking mind. And in the book, it is written so well that it almost starts to blur the lines at one point where you start wondering, like, wait, you know, like, you buy his rationale and his reasoning for everything right up until the moment that you, like, there's a moment where you're like, oh no, hey, now we've crossed that threshold, haven't we? But it gets kind of gray in the middle, and you are reading and basically picturing this descent of madness. I like that. I like that. It's almost very like Lovecraftian in a way. Our main character here, he has kind of I don't, again, not gonna spoil what happens, but he has I mean, you can tell from the trailers, he looks a little bit unhinged. He has a similar descent, but I feel like that is also a little bit rushed. Like, I mean, not entirely, but I feel like we just kind of go from, like, it's not 0 to 100, but it feels like things kind of go from 0 to 5 to 50, and then kind of go up from there. Like, it feels a little bit like, okay, you know, he seems like he's a more even keel, sane person than this, so why are we so quickly on this path of destruction here? So, I don't know. There are two complaints, and really the only complaints I have about the film, and it's just enough to have me not give it a perfect score, because the film was fantastic, don't get me wrong, but because of these kind of issues for me that just, like, they were enough to stick to the back of my head and enough for me to be like, well, it wasn't perfect then, unfortunately. But overall, I was very, very, very pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, I was worried that Candyman wasn't going to be great. Oh, and another detraction from it, though, this shouldn't have any direct effect on my view of the film. I can't help, it clouds my judgment. The trailers, again, showed way too much. I don't know if it's because they had to put out a new trailer to entice people that had forgotten about this film during the whole COVID situation, but the film shows almost every single big Candyman scene, like every scene that involved Candyman, almost every scene is shown in the trailer, and that really bugs me because it's like Invisible Man syndrome all over again. Invisible Man, that hospital scene would have hit different if the trailers hadn't shown even just the 5 seconds they did of that scene. But this one was almost a little bit worse because they showed a lot of trailers showed a lot. Go see it in theaters. Support the filmmaker, support the actors, support the artists involved in making this, and keep supporting this. If I would like to see them do more. I don't know if they will. Like I said, this film was strong enough on its own. For one, you do not need to see the original Candyman movie to be on the same page here. You don't. You can see this just as a film. Now, it adds to the legacy and gives great honor. There's secrets I won't share. It honors the legacy of what came before beautifully, and for that I appreciate it. And the fact that it can do that but also stand on its own is a testament to film that a lot of films can't quite cut the mustard on. A lot of films can't really do that sometimes. Soundtrack was good. I love the main theme, but like Wrath of Man, they lean on the main theme a little bit too much, and it could have been more diverse. There is some more. There's a few tracks in there, but soundtrack could have also been like across the board, like mwah. But good main theme. I really enjoyed it. If you're not a fan of horror, I guess skip it. I mean, there's more to it than just the horror of it. It has some very important things to say. Like I said, it has some very important messaging about police brutality, inequality amongst the races. Even like class inequality. It has some things about like gentrification in there, which, I mean, I don't know what your views are on it. I mean, everybody kind of has mixed views about gentrification, but it tackles all these subjects, I believe, in a very tasteful and not ham-handed way. It tackles them and brings them to light, shows that they're issues, but this film does not feel like you're being preached to. It just feels like they're being brought up, and how they're being brought up is very diegetic to the actors and the scenes that they're involved in. So it all works. It just works. So, you know, like I said, if you're not into horror, maybe skip it. If you can stand horror, definitely watch it. And if you love horror, without question, support it. See it in the theaters if you can. Because I give Candyman a solid 4 out of 5. Near perfect. It's a fantastic film. I loved it. I might go see it again. I will definitely buy it when it comes out. I'm so glad it was good. I love good horror movies getting out there. Granted, the Academy won't give a shit. I love to see this try to, even get some nominations for awards, but something tells me it won't. But, you know, that's kind of the nature of the beast, right? But yeah, that was Candyman. 4 out of 5, definitely recommend it. It was great. I'd love to see more from what this director will do. I hope she also tackles more horror in the future, because she handles the material very well. And I would not be opposed to seeing more Candyman movies in the future, because it seems kind of hokey at first, but I like how there's so much more to this. Very often, horror, the genre, the medium, a lot of the popular horror films out there often have deeper meaning and were started because of something that you wouldn't think started them. So I always like to see that in film in general. So yeah, more power to them. I really liked it. I hope you guys did too. And in the meantime, yeah, that's all I gotta say. Go check it out. It's great. Stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. And goodbye, travelers.